Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Julie Two Moon, of course, and I am the creator of the Thriving Health program where we address root cause at the cell layer to actually get back our true vitality and stop chasing symptoms. And I saw some interesting comments in this group and actually in another group yesterday, and I thought that it was a great opportunity to really demonstrate this whole root cause versus symptoms and band-aids versus really treating the root. So I see a lot in natural healing and in the public where we're so used to the pharmaceutical model of medicine that we use supplements and other therapies as band-aids over symptoms without ever learning to ask bigger questions about what's really going on or even to think about it. And so a great example would be someone who has a low body temperature and who already has had major hormonal problems evidenced by a hysterectomy. They're not sleeping, their body doesn't feel good. And having people say like, oh, just take some calcium magnesium, and watch the red lights and slow down before bed. Now, that's a great band-aid approach. And for some of you, you may only want band-aids, and I get that. You may not want to know what's behind it. You may not want to be addressing the root cause. But from a perspective of what's really going on in the body, that is a band-aid approach that actually can cause a lot of harm. Now, it's not that calcium magnesium can cause harm or red lights can cause harm, but it placates us so that we stop looking for the bigger why. And there's a huge why in a case like that. So low body temperature, if you've watched any of my videos on this, low body temperature is a serious sign that your cells are dipping into an extreme low energy state, and they're not in that case able to run enzyme processes. They're not using glucose, they're not using minerals, they're not able to take in nutrients, the mitochondria aren't running, you're not responding to thyroid, you're running in pure stress mode. And this is really dangerous because in pure stress mode, you don't do any repair, you don't do any recovery, you don't do any detox, which means that all of that is now starting to accumulate in the extracellular matrix. You're creating stuckness. That stuckness is growing persistent. And that stuckness means that you're further impeding the body's ability to do adequate recovery as time goes on. And this matters. Now, not only does that low body temperature set up all those processes, but think about what can't happen in our health when we get stuck in that state. In that low operation state, your cells are literally shutting down so that they can accommodate energy production that's needed to keep your organs alive. So you're doing an adaptation of just survival. That's what that means. It's just survival mode at that point, which then the question is, like, did you want survival mode or did you want to be alive? Did you want to be thriving? Did you want to be alert? Did you want to have adventure? Did you want to have choice? Did you want to have a life that's expansive rather than small? Because cells that can't sustain normal operating procedure, that are dropping themselves into lower and lower energy states, they're not going to support that kind of life. You're going to butt up against either a slow decline where your body just sort of slowly shuts everything down, or you're going to burn till you collapse. There's really two paths there. So some people go the route of sudden heart attack, stroke, and some people go the route of slow decline into fibromyalgia, autoimmune diseases, dementia, Alzheimer's, cancer. And the question really is, does either of those paths appeal to you? And if they don't, then the band-aid approach needs to be abandoned, because this is the pharmaceutical model of medicine, and it truly has infected natural medicine equally. I see this all the time, people wanting to throw vitamins at things. They're like, oh, just take some B vitamins for that. Oh, I had that, I took some valerian and I was fine. But the reality is, if that temp is low, if you've still got the hormonal problems, if your body's gaining weight, if your body has pain, it's not okay. Your body's showing signs and symptoms. It's trying to speak to you. That's what's really happening. Your body's trying to speak to you. And along the way, we learn to regard those things as nuisances. And so we kind of don't respond to the language. We just try to silence it. But that's that band-aid approach. Now, the same thing with someone who has a history of a hysterectomy. I can't stress this enough. I did a whole video on it. You can search for it. Hysterectomies happen for really only a few reasons. It's usually fibroids, endometriosis, or cancer. All three of those are stasis patterns in the pelvis They are serious and significant patterns that are actually body-wide. We've just been duped into thinking they only exist in the pelvis. They only exist in that organ. So we think that like when that organ's been removed, the problem's been remedied. So we've been alleviated of primary symptoms, usually of pain, excessive bleeding, etc., which is great. That's fine. However, the bigger problems of what created the stasis in the first place, there is always a high estrogen, aka related to stress, low cell energy problem in the background. And in removing the uterus, none of those things got addressed. Not one of them. And so it leaves us in a state where now our body cannot maintain homeostasis. We removed one focal point, but that didn't remedy the total pattern. So in the background, that stasis, that blood stasis, that deficiency, that stress mode, that high estrogen state, it is persisting. And as it persists, it's going to affect other organ systems. So now without the uterus to be the primary focal point, that might be the gut, that might be the heart, that even might be the brain and the nervous system. This is a serious problem. And I see it all the time. And, I'm in menopausal support groups, just to observe what's out there. And I see all the time women saying, oh, I just took this herb, or I just did progesterone, or I just did, these vitamins, and everything's totally fine. And meanwhile, you'll see in other areas where they're asking for help with digestion, or they're saying their blood pressure's up, or they're saying they have brain fog. So the reality is, you guys, everything's not fine. They just put a Band-Aid on one symptom, and because that symptom went down, now they're saying, I'm totally fine. This is not connected. And this is the problem. So the reality is, I want to teach you guys to start to shift your thinking, because it's about asking incredible questions about what's really happening in the totality of my body, and how does it link up to the other things that I'm experiencing, and am I really addressing the root, or am I just putting a Band-Aid on it? And then you have to ask yourself, am I okay with just putting a Band-Aid on it? Am I okay with not addressing the root, with not addressing the why or the cause, or caring about the outcome? Am I okay with just pretending that I made a difference? And if your answer is, yeah, that's all I want for right now, fantastic. But if your answer is no, that's not what I wanted, I actually wanted to heal, then I want to encourage you to start to shift that thinking. So when someone says, just take XYZ, you can start to think, well, wait a minute, is that really addressing the root? Is that really getting to the cause? Is that really letting me have the totality of my healing, or is it just mitigating one symptom? And I want to encourage you guys even here to listen in that way and notice, because you'll see it a lot, that people will say, oh, well, just take some calcium, magnesium, just take some B vitamins. That is that Band-Aid approach. That's how we have a population of sick people. The supplement industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and yet we have a growing population of people who are sicker than ever before. It's not just the pharmaceutical industry that has hijacked the system. It is the supplement industry as well. I once had a client that literally followed this model, took a supplement for every symptom that ever came up, and eventually it tanked her liver function because she was taking so many things. You guys, these things have to also be processed through our liver. Our gut has to be able to digest them. Our cells have to be able to use them. If they can't, they're wasted space. It's like a million voices screaming for something to happen. And our poor body in its exhausted state and cells that can't work are sitting there going, I don't know what to do with that. And so it's not something that you just play with and throw one more product at, because it's a model that doesn't respect our system. I mean, we really have to remember, like, we live in a miracle. Our bodies are miraculous. We have cells that are mini universes unto themselves. Each organ system has its own culture and environment. It has emotions associated with it. It directs particular functions. Think about that too. Do you ever tell your liver to run your cytochrome P450 processes? No, because its innate intelligence is so profound that it knows when to run those processes and it knows when not to. We have to start to heal from the perspective of deference to the incredible innate intelligence present within our body. And the fact that we can partner with that, if we understand how to look for where the root cause is, we can partner with that, and we can foster and build amazing resilience, and we can build those systems back. But it is not done by just slapping a supplement on a problem. It will never work. That model actually taxes our body. If you haven't watched my masterclass, the 5 steps to ending exhaustion, definitely go do that. I talk a lot about that and give great teaching on that. So please check that out. And definitely, if you are at the point where you realize you've been throwing band-aids at the problem, like kind of slapping band-aids on major problems, and your temp's low, you have hormonal issues, you're in pain, it is time to solve that before it becomes something bigger. Because again, the pattern does not interrupt just because we thought it should. So that's why so many women start with, I had a hysterectomy, and then later they had Alzheimer's, and then later they had cancer, and it just builds, you guys. This doesn't get interrupted because you took away one thing that was creating a big alarm bell without ever addressing the why was the alarm bell ringing. So if that's you, if you actually want to know how to solve it, then send me a message. Let's start talking about that, because there is no time to waste, especially if you've been applying the Band-Aid method for most of your life. All right, guys, blessings. Have beautiful days. All right, bye-bye.